This is.
We are going to trust Jackie's best judgment, and we're going to create a sound diversion so that she could work on that without a silent room. She was gonna have to cough.
Right.
Ready? And so our meeting was started. So hello, good evening. Welcome to the March Educational Affairs Board Committee meeting. Ms. Williams is serving as the chair of this particular subcommittee on this evening. Are we ready to call this meeting to order? We are. Okay. And so this evening we'll begin with a roll call. So Ms. Williams, acting chair, here. So Ms. DeLay, here. Ms. Switzer, here. So we have 3 members of our committee present during tonight's meeting. Also joining tonight's meeting are 3 of our math TOSAs. TOSAs are teachers on special assignment. And so joining us this evening to talk about the work of TOSAs and to talk about some of the really exciting work that's happening with Reveal Math are Mr. Mitchell. We're also joined by Ms. Conahan, and we're also joined by Ms. Blake. They will present first this evening. Our second presentation is being facilitated by Dr. Mazikowski, who will provide us an update on elementary literacy and the elementary literacy pilot. And I am Dr. Leslie Pratt. I will be doing the third and final presentation of the evening, and that presentation will be focused on an update on D-level. And so, knowing that those are our agenda topics, we'll really quickly just review our mission statement and our vision statement, which guide the work that we are doing as a district. To remind us of the role of this particular committee. So we focus on all things that are innovative and curricular in this particular subcommittee. We'll also talk about our meeting protocols and that these committee meetings are places where we are able to share information. They are spaces where members of the board who serve on this committee are able to ask questions, and where we will be able to take it's 3 minutes of public comment from any member of the audience who would like to share information with us. And so community comments and questions will be addressed by the appropriate administrator after each one of the presentations concludes. And so, I apologize that I skipped over a step. Every month, we are now sending the minutes from the previous meeting digitally to all of our committee members. And so the minutes from the February meeting were sent to all of the members of this committee. The minutes are also available physically at your table. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes? So, is there a second? And so, based on the reading of the minutes, do we accept the minutes from the February meeting as complete? We do. And they will be uploaded with the February power. So the most important part of our meeting, and the part that I know I'm really excited for, are the math TOSA highlights. So the TOSAs in our district, again, are teachers on special assignment. And one of the things that is especially exciting about the math TOSAs this year is the support that they are providing to the Reveal mathematics curriculum work. They are not only working to support the curricular build, they're also working to support individual teachers currently and projecting that work forward through to next year, that this is ongoing systematic work. An additional highlight is our math TOSAs will also have a role in supporting STEELs as we think about science going forward. So even though tonight's presentation is specific to some of the work related to math that's currently ongoing, we did want to honor and recognize the scope of the work we do anticipate that broadening because the educators that are presenting this are really outstanding teacher leaders in our district. So without further ado, I will pass the clicker down and our math TOSAs will present some highlights.
What am I aiming at?
Oh, for the reason.
Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Okay, there we go. So, Chad Mitchell is here to my left and Shelby Blake here to my right. We're a team that's really worked closely together, and I've enjoyed getting to know both of these teachers through the process. When we started thinking, I apologize, I have a cough drop in my mouth because it is the season. When we started thinking about what we would talk about tonight and trying to like figure out how we would possibly present to you what we've done this year in a couple of slides, we came up with some themes. So forward planning is something that we'll talk about a little bit, supporting teachers, creating materials, and then some administrative or kind of supportive tasks that we've done. And then where we hope to go next year if we're able to. So that's just kind of the outline of what we're thinking for tonight.
All right, so we wanted to start off by kind of designating a math TOSA versus a math specialist. We have both of this year in our district, and there is a difference in our role. So we as math TOSAs primarily support teachers, whereas math specialists primarily support students. We are in classrooms teaching, co-teaching, and mentoring teachers, not only just new teachers, but also veteran teachers. Whereas math specialists are there primarily to teach small groups of students, at the elementary level specifically, or support identified students in the regular education classroom, which is more in the middle school. They do more push-in. We as TOSAs use data to help teachers identify areas of strength and need in the gen ed classroom, whereas math specialists use the data to identify struggling students to pull them out to help close that achievement gap. So they're pulling out of the classroom at the elementary level. And then we also help create and curate materials for teachers to use for practice, reteaching, extension, any part of differentiation we're there to help support. And math specialists primarily plan, create, and deliver remediation for those struggling students.
Do you want me to say?
Yeah, you're gonna do it. I can speak to the forward planning, and you're gonna see a lot of elements that are similar from the middle school to the elementary school. So I'll focus on the middle school, and then I'll pass it over to either Jenny or Shelby to talk about the elementary school. Forward planning really started over the summer and has been ongoing to present day, and is going to be something we have to continue to be completing into next school year probably. But we spent a lot of time building a standard aligned scope and sequence by grade level, and first and foremost making sure that every PA state standard was covered within all of the units within Reveal. And then we spent time sorry, my eyesight is not great. I can't see the slides very well. We spent time creating unit plans for each unit and daily lesson plans that to make sure everything was done with fidelity from teacher to teacher, grade to grade, and applied external resources to each unit. And one of the focuses in the middle school is really hitting on Desmos activities, which is a piece of our curriculum that we started a couple of years back. It aligns really well to Reveal. There's so much exploration that is done within Desmos that aligns well. So spending a lot of time integrating that into our unit plan so that teachers are using that along with Reveal. We developed pacing guides for each grade level, and I've been able now to kind of go back and see like how I paced it out at the beginning of the year and where we are now. And I think in future years, we can kind of look back and decide like maybe we need to spend more time on this, less time on this, based off those initial pacing guides. I've also spent time in weekly planning meetings. We have planning meetings for each grade level by 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And in those planning meetings, talking about instructional strategies and the lesson plans for that week. And then lastly, analyzing data trends, spending a lot of time like looking at test averages and MAP scores, and even like something as small as exit tickets to help try to guide and inform teachers' instruction.
So at the elementary level, we've done a lot of the same kind of work, forward planning. I think of this as what can we do to make implementing the new curriculum easy for teachers. So we also have planning guides for each unit, and this is where we put links, for example, so that teachers don't have to go looking for reinforcing sheets. extensions sheets. The program comes with so many different materials, which is something we loved about it. There are all these STEM activities for each unit. And so what we did was try to gather all of those resources and just put them in one place so that a teacher can pull up a planning guide for a unit, have an overview of what lessons are going to be taught, what's the big idea in each lesson, and then what are all the resources that are right there. And then we put links in so they can just click right on them. Shelby has developed what she calls an unpacking unit for each, an unpacking document for each unit, which basically is kind of a summary. She looks at whether the activity-based pathway or the guided exploration is recommended, which one she thinks is a better way to go. Teachers are free to choose, but she has that recommendation for anybody who wants it. She vets the games that go with every single lesson to say, hey, this one looks really good. We also do all kinds of planning. We go to grade level planning meetings, also look at data trends to see, you know, which skills maybe need to be retaught, and then also develop pacing guides. I know, you know, as PSSAs are coming up, we're thinking, okay, what do we have to make sure we hit on before PSSAs? So that's something that we're working on. That's of the moment right now.
Ongoing.
Yeah.
All right. There we go. So teacher support is our next big idea, which I think is one of our biggest jobs that we do. At the elementary level, Jenny and I are in classrooms almost every day. We're teaching, we're co-teaching, which I think is a really, really cool model that a lot of our teachers are learning about this year. And then we mentor new teachers specifically just so that we can help with the implementation process. It's very overwhelming as a first year teacher. So any way we can support them is always a win. We are promoting and modeling best instructional practices, specifically at the elementary. In Reveal, it offers more of a guided exploration approach or more of like an inquiry-based approach. Oftentimes when we go in and teach, we're doing the inquiry-based approach so that teachers can see what that might look like, more so than the traditional teacher standing up at the front of the room teaching model. We're also providing recommendations and materials for supplemental differentiation. Not everything we're using is coming from Reveal. We have to supplement some of the differentiation pieces. So we are helping teachers vet those things and gather those materials for them. Jenny has also done a ton of work with integrating as much as we can into Schoology and Seesaw. Where so teachers can upload, can just push right out onto their courses, the math replay videos. She downloaded all of those onto Schoology for every single grade level from 3 to 5, and also for K to 2 on a Seesaw. She's done so much work with that. But any STEM extension activities, we pushed right out onto Schoology so teachers can copy them directly to their courses and make it as easy as possible. We have also developed professional growth plans and student performance measures that teachers can use that are related to the Reveal pedagogy, where we can go in and model or co-teach, and they can track their students' progress from the beginning to the end of the year for their student performance measures that teachers have to do. And then we also just deal with any unexpected challenges. We're kind of on call. Today, I was starting in my day at MPE, and then I got a call to come teach a lesson at SRF. And so I went over there, no problem. So we are kind of on call wherever we're needed, we go. But yeah, that's kind of what the elementary teacher support looks like.
Yeah, you're gonna hear a lot of the same with the middle school, so I'll try not to repeat too much, but this is one of my favorite parts of the job, being able to push into the classroom and like help teachers grow in their instruction. So a lot of things that I'm doing, and I'm going in the classrooms at least 3 to 4 times a day, is, you know, supporting teachers with their instruction, teaching and modeling lessons. This past week, I was really excited to go into the 6th grade classroom, and I found this cool exploration activity that wasn't from Reveal, but it was really well related, that involved like a math magic activity that related algebraic expressions. So I asked the 6th grade teachers if I could, you know, teach a lesson.
Very excited about this kind of thing.
I was so excited. And it's one of those activities where, like, you know, you pick a number, you multiply by 3, add 3, and all of a sudden the answer is always 4. So, you know, I got all the kids like, how did he get that answer? But like a lot of them were able to discover from that like experience how to figure out the algebraic expression and why the answer kept equaling 4. Because the variables ended up, you know, subtracting from each other, and you just end up with that one number. So like being able to do those lessons, like so much fun. I love being able to push in that way. I also have done a lot of co-teaching, which the teachers have really enjoyed and loved my support in that way. I've also supported teachers with like kind of modeling best practices. We have 3 new teachers in our math department this year. So talking about like strategies, best instructional strategies, that happens a lot of times like within those weekly planning meetings. We can talk about like how best to teach GCF or LCM or factoring, and being able to like differentiate lessons. And I think with differentiation, a lot of times it comes with like finding these exit tickets to assess students quickly. And then from there, we can differentiate the needs of the kids. So like I've done a lot of work with our new teachers, but also some of our veteran teachers to help them with those formative assessments. And also the last few things, I also uploaded all the math replay videos so that teachers can easily upload it in Schoology for kids to access from 6 through 8. And then I've also helped a lot with tech support. We have a lot of new programs in the middle school that teachers are working with this year between Schoology, with Reveal. Some of our teachers are also new to Desmos, so trying to help them balance all of that. I've done a lot with helping teachers with tech support.
Creation of materials, this is kind of what I think of as like, if we were trying to make it easy for teachers, this is where I think of, we need to make it fit Wallingford-Swarthmore School District. So we knew that any program that we purchased was not going to have every single thing that we needed. So at the elementary level, we talked about the planning guides already. Something like augmented slides doesn't really sound like a big deal. The program comes with slides that teachers can teach from. But what we do is try to make them kind of steer teachers in the direction that we hope that they'll go. So for example, we add in activity directions. The directions, I didn't do a great job of explaining this, but every lesson at the elementary level can have, Shelby sort of did, either a guided pathway or an activity based, which is more hands-on. But the directions for the activities aren't really explained particularly well in the teacher's guide. So we put a slide in each set that has directions for students to follow, so the teacher can put it up, read through it with the students, and the directions are right there, making it easier, kind of steering teachers in that direction. One grade level was saying, we really aren't getting to those kind of juicier problems on the back of the page. So we said, okay, great, we'll add them into the slideshow so that as you're going through the slides, you won't skip over those. So that kind of thing. We make recording sheets for activities. We make larger tests. We make pre-tests that have a little bit more information on them for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. We have some documents that we call progress on standards to encourage teachers to look at sort of noticing whether a student has mastered a standard rather than just what the score on the test is. We're going to go in that direction next year, we hope. We rewrote the report card descriptors this year. And then because we think some grade levels are actually going to have the curriculum finished by PSSAs, we are developing what they might want to do after the PSSAs are finished.
So at the middle level, at the middle school, we have leveled assessments, which is challenge by choice. So we offer a grade level assessment, modified assessment, and then an enriched level assessment. So I've spent a lot of time throughout the year in working with the team of teachers to create these leveled assessments to make sure they're equitable for all. We've done a lot with building enrichment materials. Reveal has an awesome STEM challenge for each unit, which a lot of our enriched classes and even some of our core kids have had exposure to, but also just developing enrichment materials for the enriched and our core kids to help support our higher level learners. I've developed activities to help engage students. Last month, I built some task cards that went with the Reveal lesson to help kids get them moving around, get them engaged, and then a quick way to formatively assess and drive our instruction. I've been working with the math specialists to build exit tickets to help us really collect some more data before we get to the test so that teachers are able to then use that data to inform instruction. I've built some smart notebook slides similar to what Jenny said. We've used the slides and made them a little easier for teachers to present to the kids. And then we also were going to have multiple grades probably finishing the curriculum for the PSSA. So I started working on post-PSSA curriculum and what that will look like. So we also have done like a bunch of other tasks throughout this year that we're just going to put under supportive tasks. At the beginning of the year, the 3 of us had several meetings with Mr. Benzing while he was still in his role. Planning, preparing, and then presenting parent information nights. We presented one at all 3 elementary schools as well as one at the middle school. I know Jenny and Shelby were able to attend some of the back to school nights to talk more about Reveal. We have planned, organized, and facilitated professional development sessions during our PD days. We've organized and attended vertical team meetings. We attend monthly administrative team meetings, initially with Mr. Benzing and now with Dr. Pratt and Dr. Baddick. I know the elementary school has done a lot with organizing existing manipulatives and ordering, distributing needed materials. They rewrote report card descriptors.
We're really proud of that, so we put that on a couple slides.
I didn't have anything to do with that, but it did all that. And we've done a lot to try to recruit teachers for future summer work and past summer work. And we will be continuing to do that this summer because our work is nowhere near done. We have a lot more that we need to do. And we've been able to attend some professional meetings like Math Consortium and STA.
All right, so our goals, where we hope to go in year 2. This is across for middle and elementary, so I'm just gonna take the full slide. We want to really help teachers improve instruction. We want to help implement structures that facilitate exploration, engagement, and daily formative assessment so that we're constantly changing our instruction to meet the needs of our students. We want to help teachers support planning ahead and preparing for deep mathematical conversation. So how can we help support teachers and building that math vocabulary, but also not just going the surface level conversation, but really having deep conversations, which Reveal does open the door to. But a lot of our teachers, especially our new teachers, need support in doing that because it does take skill to do that. And then we want to really help them develop proficiency-based instruction. For a long time, a test gets sent home and they're 97% on the test. Well, what does that really tell us? So we're really moving towards more standards-based and mastery-based. So a student, Jenny had mentioned earlier, we're creating standards progress reports for each test for the teachers to use. Each item on the test is analyzed and it's assigned a standard. It goes with a standard. And so teachers can use these pages to help inform the mastery of a standard rather than an overall percentage on a test. And then they can go back and reteach if needed to help master that standard. So we're moving towards that approach, which we're really pushing for year 2. We also really want to streamline curriculum extension time and intervention blocks. At the elementary school level, we have an hour. We have like 2 30-minute blocks. I think there's a really big need and also a huge, I think, opportunity for us to support teachers in using data and us helping sort through that data and kind of narrow down to help group students for efficient intervention and extension to help get the most bang for our buck, but also develop a bank of lessons and activities for use during intervention and extension periods where teachers don't have to make everything. They can go and what am I teaching? What do my kids need? Here's a lesson that supports that. I can get it and do a quick lesson on it. We want to assist in preparation for online administration of PSSAs. Elementary will be doing that next year. Middle school has been doing that, but I think can support kids to help better prepare them, but also from the elementary school, we need to do a lot of preparation. That is a heavy lift to get 3rd graders, 4th graders, and 5th graders ready to test solely online. And then Jenny and I specifically, and Chad at the most, we really want to start integrating math and science. There are new STEEL standards that Pennsylvania is fully adopting starting next year. And so we are going to really, our goal is to integrate mathematical topics like measurement and data and try to integrate math and science more seamlessly because they do intertwine together. And then just address some scheduling challenges with science. Start getting some more science time within math if possible, but really starting to get some more units aligned to the STEEL standards for K-5, specifically for elementary.
And then that takes us to those STEEL standards. So as Dr. Pratt mentioned, this isn't something that we worked on so much this year, but something looking into the future. The plan that Dr. Mr. Benzing, Andy Benzing had in mind was that we would have 3 STEELs aligned units per grade level, and STEELs science, technology, and engineering, environmental literacy, and sustainability. That's where those letters come from. So in 2022, 2023, schools were piloting an EIE kit. And EIE is just a company, it's Engineering is Elementary. They make these that go along or cover the standards, the steel standards. And so different grade levels were piloting different kits. And then the idea was that in 2023, 2024, the kit would be implemented, and then each grade level would write a unit. And then that 2024, 2025, we would have the EIE kit, we would have that first unit written, and we would write the second unit, so that by 2025, 2026, all 3 science units at each grade level would be steels aligned. Kindergarten's different because it's half day. They have much smaller amount of time for science. So the reality is that the EIE kits have been piloted and they've been adapted to make them kind of fit our time blocks at 4 of the 5 grade levels, again, not kindergarten, but implementation is inconsistent. The WSSD units are not complete, so summer work is needed. And we think that TOSA support is recommended kind of for the same ideas of forward planning, teacher support, material creation. And I feel really strongly about those cross-curricular connections. Our minutes are so limited that anywhere we can combine and connect math and science, I think it also makes it, of course, much more meaningful for kids, right? If they're analyzing data that they've collected, they're going to be much more invested in doing that. So that's one of the drums that I kind of beat all the time. So that's where we are with science right now.
All right, and then we want to leave you with, we sent out a survey like a week or 2 ago. We just asking for teachers' feedback on what we can improve on. Do you find this role helpful? So on the top is the elementary. There are only 22 responses. We know that that is not nearly the amount of elementary teachers. This was a voluntary survey, so if we did not force them to take this, but more times than not, we have gotten great feedback. They find this role very supportive. I know at all the K-5 and middle school, they enjoy having us in their classrooms. A lot of times they ask me, hey, do you have a time to come in today and talk? So, and I think that's been different in years past. I don't think teachers have been as open to having people come in their classrooms. So that's been a really, really nice change to see. At the middle school, they only have 8 math teachers in their department. So when you see they only have like 4 or 5 responses, there's only 8 teachers total. So that's actually a great percentage. So
5%, baby.
But yeah, so I do think our teachers do find this role really valuable and very supportive for them. And then we're just going to leave you, when you have a second, when you have a minute of free time, this is some of the specific feedback that teachers left on our survey. I'm not going to read these to you guys, but you guys, when you have a minute, can read through that survey, I think, and some of the feedback that we specifically got from teachers. So other than that, that's it.
Yeah. Well, I'll have the committee ask or comment, and then we'll turn it to the community as well. I will thank Chad, Jenny, and Shelby. Thank you so much. I'm not sure what you don't do, honestly. So Jolene.
Yeah, just thanks so much. Thanks for your work, for your enthusiasm. You know, we're kind of accustomed to excitement about math around here from Andy. So it's nice to have that vibe continue. Yeah, just I also wanted to well, thank you for coming tonight as well. It's really helpful having you here in person to hear all of this wonderful work that you're doing. It really brings it to light. And also, I wanted to also mention that you have connections to strategic plan, which I find really helpful and nice to see as well. So thank you very much. Mr. Beck.
Yes, I want to thank you for the presentation. It let us know as a board that you're meeting the objective that was set out when we budgeted for you. So because you've done such great work, I, as a board member, will be the first to say that you will be budgeted for next year. So I think it's a wonderful idea, and it's helping our teachers unlearn what they learned. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, and that way they're opening up a new way of teaching our students that makes it easier even for the underserved and underrepresented students, they have an opportunity through this program to be pulled out. And that's good because, lots of times they can get lost, like the teacher only teaches to the ones who are looking at her. The one in the back is twirling pickup sticks, and so you might see that in the classroom and recommend that that child is moved up into the T so that they're better able to focus on what the teacher is saying as opposed to being outside of the T. So good work.
Thank you.
Are we allowed to say anything? Does that violate like rules of order or anything? Okay. So I just wanted to tell you, what you said really resonated. I went into a second grade to 2 second grades in the last couple of days so that those 2 teachers could observe each other. So rather than me going in and teaching, because I'm not an expert on second grade, I went in and taught 1 second grade class and she observed her colleague and then we flip-flopped. And they said the most interesting things, you know, that one of them said, it was so great to be able to focus on the teaching and not focus on what the kids were doing. Because as teachers, of course, we're teaching, but we're also watching what 30 or, 25 different people are doing at the time that we're teaching. And so that opportunity that we've had to give teachers a chance to observe the expertise of their colleagues and also just to kind of think in a bigger way about math instruction, I think has been just invaluable. Yeah.
So are our scores going up? You won't know until after this year's PSSDs.
Right, and it is a new program, so I think anytime you get a new program, things are up in the air, right?
It takes a little bit of time
Yeah.
to get off.
So are you looking forward to, you can say that in a percentage, say 75%, that you believe the grades will improve?
What I can speak to is
As
I can speak,
opposed to the years before where we have fallen off.
I can't speak to specific scores. What I can speak to is what teachers say about the kids' number sense, specifically in lower grades. I think teachers, I have never heard more teachers say, I've never had kids who understand numbers like they have this year. I've never had kids who have a deeper understanding of why why the process of what they're doing works. Those kinds of conversations that I'm hearing and I'm seeing and I'm getting feedback from teachers tells me that we're headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
When you have a stronger number sense from the lower grades, it's a trickle up effect, right?
Right.
So when you have a higher number sense and a stronger mathematical thinking and way of looking
Foundation.
at problems and a stronger
Right.
foundation, it only will grow. Now, I think that might take a little bit of time, right, for that trickle up effect to happen, but I think we're well on the road to that.
And just to add to that, I've also had teachers tell me about how they've never had so many kids engaged. Teachers that are using these exploration and experience activities where kids get to experience things. Kids that normally aren't engaged in participating, or maybe they felt scared to get the wrong answer, have been participating and are more engaged in the lessons.
And I will say that, I know why teachers, you're well received because you're helping. I mean, they see you in their rooms. These documents have all the links in one place. You're helping them and they appreciate it. So.
Well, it's such a privilege to be able to do that. People say all the time, oh, thank you so much for doing that. I'm like, well, you're welcome. I'm so happy to be able to help you. It really does feel like it's been a privilege to be able to do that. And then the other to build on what Shelby said, being in second grade and hearing second graders talking about decomposing numbers. I said, now we're going to decompose some numbers. Is that a term you've heard? Oh, we've been decomposing numbers all year. I was like, all right, let's get into it. And then the other thing they say is, what? Yes, and I think because we do a lot of activities, as Chad said, I think kids are very engaged.
Love change.
Oh,
It's nice to
sure.
see the face, it's nice to
Yeah,
see the-
They love guest speakers.
Yeah, they sure do.
All right, so we'll turn it over to the community members. There and Mandy, if you have a comment or question, if you could tell us your name and the street you live
Sarah Levinson, Elm Avenue in Swarthmore. I thought this was lovely. Thank you. It was, I have a 5th and 6th grader, so it was really nice to sort of see everything we've been doing this year. I guess my only question would be about parent resources. And to be perfectly honest, I haven't looked very hard for them. So it could be online, or it was in an email. But with my fifth grader, I've looked to Khan Academy several times to sort of refresh or find the new way that things are taught, if that makes sense.
So I can take that.
Yeah.
So Reveal has a portal that you can access through Clever. We have step-by-step directions. I'll send you an email with those directions, but you can access math replay videos, you can access student book, so you can see directly like the pages that they did that day. And then the math replay video, which basically reteach the strategy for that day, are accessible for every lesson on the Reveal website.
I think the replay videos are really nice too, because they're like 2 to 3 minutes. But it gives you as a parent a sense of how the skill was taught in school. Because, you know, this idea of decomposing numbers, for example, might feel a little bit different to people. So I think those are a really good resource, not only for students, but also for parents. But yeah,
Sorry.
no, go ahead.
It helps parents be smarter than a second grader. Because, because it's not something that we did in math. I'm dating myself. So I looked at it, I'm like, I can't help you, I don't know what you do.
Yeah, the strategies
So
are
I
really
think
different.
having that as a resource for parents is a wonderful idea.
It is.
And then I did have a follow-up. I know that the middle schoolers bring home Chromebooks. Recognizing like with Jack, that, you know, not all parents are available to do homework at home. But the sixth grade, they all have Chromebooks, so I'm assuming they have access to these sort of.
Yeah, so at the middle school, we have the replay video should be uploaded in your child's Schoology.
I'm sure.
Yeah, and then, but you can also access the Reveal textbook as well through Clever.
And I just wanted to say, excuse me, a huge thank you and kudos, and I want to like give you all a hug individually because I mean, it's clear from your presentation all that you put into this new implementation. And I have a seventh grader. She has a math IEP, and from kindergarten until last year, she would come home and it would just be meltdown after meltdown with homework. And this year, a couple months into the school year, and me asking and not trying to, you know, probe too much to like set off any kind of meltdown that might be coming. But she just looked at me and she said, I'm pretty confident with math this year, Mom. And I just had like the weight of the world come off of my shoulders. And so I just wanted to relay that to you. I've said that to Dr. Matt Thanka and to her teacher, because it's just been a complete 180 of a year for her, and goals are starting to be removed from her IEP because she's, you know, you can tell she's collaborating, she's finding that like you said, the number sense, like things are starting to come together for her, and I think it's so much in part because of what the three of you have done. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
What can you say?
Questions or comments? Our TOSAs have been in school, some of them since 7 a.m. this morning.
And Harper Blake is turning 1 today.
Oh,
so-
yeah. And so there's somewhere very important for all of our TOSAs to be, one in particular. And so I just wanted to thank them again for presenting and offer the opportunity for you to lead the meeting so that you can go and tend to the really important things in your. Thank you for having us.
Good night.
You're welcome.
And then Dr. Monkowski is going to share information on the ELA core pilot and offer some highlights and some clarification.
Yes, now we can crowd teaser, which is what brings out the crowd every time, so the ELA highlights and clarifications. So thank you to community members and to our school board for your continued interest, collaboration, and questions. Thank you for having me return tonight to continue the discussion about the ELA co-pilots. I just want to give a brief recap so we can ground ourselves into where we are at the Educational Affairs meeting on February 5th. We shared student ELA map data from the 23-24 school year. We also shared data relating to teacher perspectives about whether the current board-approved curriculum materials align with research and the state standards. Everything showed that as talented and hardworking our teachers are, they were significantly, and they are significantly supplementing resources in co-instruction in the areas of comprehension and writing in order to address the state standards. The data also supported the need to investigate and update our current elementary program. So to recap the ELA process so far in selecting a core ELA pilot, we shared the process at a FAIRS meeting for investigating and updating our current ELA core. The process began with a list of 21 program recommendations from KSLA, the DCIU, the Reading League, the Knowledge Matters campaign, and from neighboring local school districts. That list was narrowed to 16 programs by using our WSSD requirements of a knowledge building, comprehensive K-5 program aligned with the science of reading. Those 16 programs were narrowed to 5 programs using many reference resources, including curriculum navigation reports from the Reading League, curriculum directory reviews from the Knowledge Matters campaign, product presentations from several of those companies, as well as school programming, non-negotiables, and ELA core preferences directly from our own WSSD teachers. A review matrix was developed using research-based categories and curriculum characteristics from Ed Reports, the Reading League, Knowledge Matters campaign, and teacher surveys. The 5 programs were analyzed using the review matrix to narrow down to the final 2 programs, Arts and Letters and Benchmark Advance. All K-5 teachers had the opportunity to review product samples from these 2 programs. And last week, 26 teachers across all 3 elementary buildings and at all grade levels began piloting. Again, thank you to all teachers who volunteered to pilot and are doing this with a lot of enthusiasm. The Reading League is a source for evidence-aligned reading instruction webinars, books, podcasts, articles, and more. Their resources are curated by experts in the science of reading field and are tailored to guide educators as they build their professional knowledge. At our February 5th Educational Affairs meeting, we mentioned the Reading League's curriculum evaluation guidelines and the Reading League's curriculum navigation reports. I wanted to provide additional information about what those are and how they are used. What are the curriculum evaluation guidelines? The Reading League's curriculum evaluation guidelines provide another lens through which districts can examine sets of materials to make informed decisions about the materials they will place in front of their learners. The Reading League's curriculum evaluation guidelines are available publicly for use by curriculum decision makers. These guidelines are designed to highlight any non-aligned practices or red flags in the areas of word recognition, language comprehension, reading comprehension, writing, and assessment. The guidelines are used by the Reading League for formal reviews, resulting in curriculum navigation reports. How are these used? On this slide, you can see critical considerations about curriculum navigation reports directly from the Reading League. The reports are informational to guide instructional decisions. The reports are not endorsements. Again, these reports are not endorsements. The Reading League reminds us that educator, administrator, and decision maker professional knowledge is more important than even the most robust curriculum product. I have said this multiple times before, and the Reading League confirms that there is no perfect product. Inside of your folders, school board members have received the official response from each company about why the 2 ELA co-pilots have not yet been reviewed by the Reading League. To summarize for our community, Benchmark Education Company is in contact with the Reading League and is currently in the process of coordinating a review. Benchmark Education has previously declined to be reviewed by the Reading League. To clarify, the reason behind the delay in review is because the company has been purposefully revising, refining, and strengthening its previous copyright prior to submitting the 2026 copyright for review by the Reading League. They improved their product by increasing explicit instruction in foundational skills, adding 100 practice decodables to K2, and providing handwriting practice and enhanced word study resources in grades 3 to 5. Something important to note is that the decodables in Benchmark Advanced are already cited on the suggested list of decodable text sources from the Reading League. Great Minds, which is the parent company for Arts and Letters, is currently finalizing a 2025 review timeline with the Reading League. While Arts and Letters needs to be paired with an evidence-based foundational skills program, such as Foundations and/or 95 Word Study, which we have, Great Minds looks forward to a Reading League curriculum navigation review of their approach to language comprehension, reading comprehension, writing, and assessment. Great Minds encourages engagement with other third-party reviews that have already been completed on their materials, such as Ed Reports, the Knowledge Matters campaign, and various state departments of education, including the Louisiana Department of Education. To bring historical context to our WSSD curriculum evaluation and selection process, I'd like to take you back to the spring of 2021, because once again, this work started 5 years ago, where in collaboration with a team of teachers, I facilitated an investigation and upgrade of our K2 ELA full programming. The team followed a similar internal review process that did not rely explicitly on third-party evaluators. Next, I'd like to take us back to the spring of 2024, where again, in collaboration with a team of teachers, I facilitated an investigation and upgrade for part of our 3 to 5 ELA full programming. The focus of this upgrade was filling the instructional gap of the word recognition or word study components of the reading rope. Again, the team followed a similar internal review process, pilot, and recommendation. And last month, 3 of the ELA TOSAs sat right there next to me, and they have been doing this work with me since 2020. And they're probably watching right now, so I'll say hi to them. They have been invested and committed to this. So finding a program that is K-5 and comprehensive has been their mission and our mission for quite a while. And we were just waiting for the right product that would fit the needs of WSSD to be here and make sure that we have what we need. If you look on this slide, you will see the Reading League already mentioned because we have used them as a resource before. Historically, in our district, we have relied upon both the internal expertise of our staff and a wide variety of reference resources to make the best possible instructional programming decisions for our students. This visual representation has guided our shift to structured literacy in the district. You have seen this visual representation for many years now. As a reminder, this is Scarborough's reading rope, and it is a visual metaphor for the development of skills over time. It breaks out the components of word recognition, the blue part at the bottom, and language comprehension, the red part at the top, to expose their development as they intertwine and become increasingly strategic and automatic over time to develop fluent and skilled reading. I'd like to point you to the quote from Natalie Wexler, who's well known in the world of literacy. Effective instruction requires a focus on both the what and the how, what students learn and how they are taught. Systematic and explicit teaching of content is essential for building the knowledge that underpins comprehension. And this is what we focus on: good instruction and best instructional strategy. The simple view of reading theory was proposed in 1986 by cognitive scientists Philip Goff and William Tunman. As the model shows, reading comprehension, which is the purple box, is not the sum, but rather the product of two components: word recognition, which is the blue box, and language comprehension, the red box. This means that if either one of the two components is weak, then reading comprehension is diminished. This theory is directly linked to Scarborough's reading rope. Both the simple view of reading and the reading rope are important, to understand and reference as we evaluate Tier 1 curricular options. As a reminder, one of our ELA core pilots is Benchmark Advance. On the screen, you can see how the instructional practices in the program aligns with the science of reading research. Attaching the link in the bottom right corner of this slide is a 158-page document titled Internal Review of Benchmark Advance. If you click on this link, it will show you how the Benchmark Education Company used the Reading League's guidelines to internally evaluate how well Benchmark Advance 2022 copyright aligns with the components of the science of reading. It includes supporting evidence citations linking to specific lessons across grade levels, instructional routines, and 12 pages that list the connections to research. If Benchmark Advance is recommended and adopted, we would continue to have access to foundations in K2 and in N95% word study in grades 3 to 5 program. And if you look at this slide, these are all the components that are addressed in Benchmark Advance, in addition to spelling and writing. This is a sample of how attaching the link at the bottom right corner and provided to our school board members in their folders are 2 documents that explain the alignment of the science of reading research and structured literacy practices in the 2026 copyright of Benchmark Advance. On this screen, you can see an excerpt of these documents. Similarly, the other ELA core pilot is Arts and Letters by Great Minds. On the screen, you can see how the instructional practices in the Arts and Letters program align with the science of reading research. As previously mentioned, Arts and Letters is designed to pair with an evidence-based word recognition skills program. If Arts and Letters is recommended and adopted, we would continue to implement foundations in K2 and 95% group word study in 3-5 as the ELA core word recognition programs. Attaching the link again in the bottom right corner and provided to our school board members in their folders is a 12-page document that outlines the research alignment for Arts and Letters. The left column on this page lists each of the components of Scarborough's road. The right column explains how the instructional approaches in Arts and Letters address each of those components of the science of reading. And again, on this screen, you can see an excerpt from this document. This brings us to the next steps. So we have started our pilot. The teachers now, we are going to be getting feedback for informed decision-making from students, teachers, and administrators. When we say pilot, we also have ongoing professional learning that is happening almost every week, where either the TOSAs or reading specialists are covering classes or giving release time to teachers so that they can attend the professional development so that they can get more and more they learn about either program so they can make an informed decision. Our administrators are also getting professional development from Arts and Letters and Benchmark Advance. We would eventually make a recommendation. Dr. Scanlon would make a recommendation based on the what we see on the feedback that we get. We do have to plan for professional development because as you just heard from the math courses, any program that is implemented, and we saw that at the beginning of the year with 95% group, before we went into the pilot, when we were implementing 95% group, there was a lot of professional learning that had to happen and a lot of support given to teachers as they were getting used to using 95% group and how they were using it in the classroom. So similarly, there would be that implementation would require a big lift. And then it's planning for the 25-26 implementation of the ELA core, including summer work, because when you're implementing a program in September, you cannot expect to have the program in the hands of teachers in September. It has to be. And this whole thing, starting in 2020, going back to the work that all the teachers were doing and the shift and, from Sola's story, which really brought about the big turnabout in literacy instruction, and just knowing what we were doing in the district, having had the same program for 10 years in elementary and not having had any shift, doing the upgrade in K2, bringing in 95% group in grades 3 to 5, working with an amazing group of teachers, reading specialists, and now the literacy TOSAs, which again, they are in the first year of being literacy TOSAs, but their work started way back. it was, this is not nowhere, like this is their first year. Now they actually have the time to do this, set aside time to do this. Otherwise, they would be doing this along with their other responsibilities. So you do the best you can until you know better, and now that we know better, we have to do better. And we use a lot of data. We have a lot of data at the elementary for literacy. We have Ames Web this year. We moved away from Dibbles. We have implemented Ames Web. We use math. We use our unit tests. We use feedback and what we are observing from this in the classroom. We have a strong RTII process at the elementary. So all of this is data that is showing us where we are and where we need to be. So this was just an update and some clarification on the pilot.
Thank you, Dr. Merzakowski.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Light. This is a lot of information to digest.
Yeah.
Thank you for it. I think I'm looking for the alignment document you referenced that shows the alignment of benchmark with the science of reading. I don't.
So that's a 158-page document that we had to sift through and go through.
I thought I heard you say it was in here. That's why I asked. Okay.
So I will bring it back. So benchmark advanced.
I think was it a link?
Yeah.
Was that the linked document? Okay, so it wasn't in our folder. It was linked in the presentation.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I just wondered about that. I see, where it is. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have two more questions. One is, will we be collecting data on both of these pilots? To assist with the decision as to which one. I mean, will
we collecting data? Yes.
Okay. And then also, where are the TOSAs now? Are they in the classroom supporting the teachers?
So they were in the classroom supporting teachers at the beginning of the year because that is part of their role. But they cannot unload pallets of materials as they come in, sitting in the classroom or working with students. So the job has shifted in January, specifically on January 17, when we shifted to based on teacher feedback and the meeting we had with Dr. Scanlon and Dr. Bade, we are going to do a pilot. So organizing a pilot and meeting with the vendors and getting all the materials have taken them away from the classroom. As of this week, they're back in the classrooms, sharing their time, supporting teachers in the classroom, supporting the pilot, and also organizing a lot of the professional development that is related to the pilot. Because in order for them to support the program, they also have to learn it. They don't already know this thing. They also have to learn it. So they're learning the program and so that they can give support to the teachers and also to the administrators.
Okay, great. I'm glad to hear they're back in there. I think it'll be great to have, boots on the ground to kind of help out with, getting this, and collecting the data too.
And I would also like to clarify, if I may, I know that you just heard the math TOSA, so I don't want to compare apples to oranges because, Reveal has already been purchased and implemented. So they are in the classroom implementing a program that has already been adopted. We have not selected a program. We are in the process. So what Andy was doing last year, going around visiting classrooms and collecting data from what he was seeing in the classroom and organizing the professional development, that happened last year. They are doing it this year. Right? So it's not, once the program is in place and in the classroom, yes. Right now they are also, their work, their responsibility in classroom. I just want to clarify.
That's it for me.
Yeah. When do you think the TOSAs will be able to do the job that the board funded them for, which was to be a support to the teachers and mentoring and in the classroom?
So they're
And providing a resource. So I'm just confused about them not being in the classroom and doing more administrative work than they are.
They're not doing administrative work at all. In fact, we make sure that they don't. at all. They have no administrative duties. The board approved their position to support 95 group implementation and to explore programs that would be selected to be adopted by the school district, in addition to supporting in the classroom. So are they fulfilling their duties of supporting the exploration of an ELA 4 program? 100%. That is what they were approved to do. Are they supporting the 95% group implementation? Yes, they are. In addition to, are they supporting classrooms? Yes. Did you?
Yeah, I know that, and Dr. Mazakowski, that this is her final meeting, and I thank you for your time. Your
Thank
service
you.
that you've done with all this, a lot of work. Part of the transition, and Dr. Johnson comes on this spring. Part of my role begins to shift to help transition Dr. Johnson, but also to help some of the openings in the curriculum. Yeah, I want to work closer with the closest, and this, particularly this spring, with these 2 pilots going on, about a week into these pilots.
1 week.
And the next phase is to really have them work closely with teachers, also principals. I want to work with
Yeah.
principals on what to look for as they are going in classroom, helping support our teachers so that we can get some really good feedback on these 2 pilots and come back to the board.
The way you presented it shows that you put a lot of work into it, and it is a good forward move for the district. But how many classes are doing the pilot? Is it?
There are 26 teachers doing the pilot. So it's across grades K through 5 in all 3 buildings.
So the curriculum is aligned so that SRS is doing what Wes is
Yes.
doing,
What
and Wes
yeah.
is doing with NPE.
Yes.
So when they come back here in 6th grade, they have learned the information together.
Yes.
It's not
It'll
all.
take a little bit of time because by the time they're in 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, yes. But that's the goal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then I guess they are doing what they're paid for.
Yes, they are.
But when you explained it just seemed like well, I stand corrected that it's not administrative work, but it sounded like administrative work.
Okay.
I think part of their role initially was taking the 21 programs that we started with to pare it down. They were actually teachers out of the classroom, so part of their role was to start narrowing some of that down before we got to the pilot process.
So how long is the pilot gonna be on until you make a decision?
It's probably going to end spring break.
Yeah,
But it just started, so it's like a week in. We need a little bit of time in the classroom, but it has to be by spring break because if we want to purchase the materials and have it in the hands of teachers, that has to happen by May. So
Yeah,
you have to have the feedback and know what the results are essentially of the pilot before you make that decision.
okay. So who will make the decision now that you're gone?
That was
Dr.
good.
Stanley. You'll give us a recommendation on which one you feel fits what. Oh, okay.
So I have a few comments.
Sure.
I talk with Dr. Johnson once a week. Kevin and I do. And he was asking us about this curriculum, and he's familiar with both. And they actually in Massachusetts developed a curriculum bank, and I hope I'm not speaking for him because I know he watches every meeting. But he was familiar with it. So,
Whatever.
Yeah, so I do have a couple questions though. One other thing, my daughter is in the pilot at SRS and her teacher benchmark. Yes, and we were at bingo night last Friday night,
right.
which you probably were there too. But her teacher is like leaving in the middle of bingo. And she has her bags and she's like, Michelle, come over here. And so she was just leaving school. She had written up all of her lessons for the pilot. And she's actually really happy with it. She said she's seeing some great things. And now that she's going into the second week and she's written everything out, that she thinks by next week, like it'll get a little bit easier each week. And so, and she's a veteran teacher and she will tell you what she thinks. And she was impressed. She said, she even said, I was a little skeptical when it started, but, so that's good. A couple questions. So the arts and letters, can you put the slide back up that had the boxes?
Yes. Oh,
Not
sorry,
that
no,
one,
this one, this
boxes.
the color box.
Yeah, that
Let's go.
So am I understanding this correctly?
Yeah.
If we, yes.
Yes, I know your question. Yes,
You know.
I'm anticipating.
Okay, so if we do arts and letters, we keep foundation
Yeah.
and we keep 95%.
Yeah.
But benchmark, if we take benchmark, what happens to foundations and
So,
95%?
because it's already addressed in the program, so this, if you look at, the word recognition piece, arts and letters
It's
doesn't
built
have,
in,
arts and letters is not built in.
but benchmark
Benchmark
is.
is built in. Let me, before we say that though, just, you heard the math courses say too, like, we got revealed, but there are some, we have a supplement. There's no perfect program. When we look at this, what I see is that we have been doing foundations in this district for a very long time, even before the 5 years where I got here. We're doing foundations in different departments. And foundations is proved and, we teachers are very attached to foundations and they're getting very used to 95% group also. So this, whatever is missing from arts and letters, that word recognition piece is filled in by the foundation and 95%. But the language comprehension piece of arts and letters is, I'm not saying one program is better than the other. I'm just saying that.
So what happens to foundations and 95% group if we adopt benchmark?
We would still keep it. We would
And
still
use it
keep
as like supplemental?
use it as a supplemental, use it as part of our tier 1 enrichment or tier 1 supplemental or tier 2, but we would keep it. And remember, we're using foundations in our tier 2 anyway, so we would keep. We're not looking to get rid of anything that we have adopted in the last 5 years, especially because we did so much research and we have really used the data to guide us to, and we are seeing results in our students. But when we show you the map data, you see the growth in these areas that we were missing before. The whole point of having adopted 95% group is because that is not, we did not have it in grades 3 to 5. So no, we are not looking to, especially these two, we're not looking to let go of them.
So could you make an argument for benchmark?
Yeah.
That because they have it already embedded in there, our kids are gonna get more
You
with
could,
that plus all the stuff with the
could.
95.
you could.
Okay.
You could.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I was totally anticipating that.
Okay.
Because we have, but we have these same discussions too, in our meeting.
Right.
When we are talking to the vendors, when we're talking to the reps, when we are having the professional development, we also talk about, this, we are careful not to tell arts and letters that we are piloting benchmark, but I don't know that it's a secret.
Right. And then I think my last question, so the copyright, I'm confused, we're piloting the 2022 benchmark program. But if we adopted it, we would adopt the 2026 one.
No, we are piloting their new program.
We're piloting their
Yes.
2026. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
Both of them are very new, and we actually found out about Benchmark Advance when we went to the KSLA conference. Thank you for sending us to that. When we were there is when we met the reps from Benchmark, and that's when we started speaking to them.
Okay.
So
We
yeah.
would be adopting the
Yes,
new.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Gotcha. All right. All right. Ladies. Your name and street that you live on.
So Sarah Levinson, Wallingford-Swarthmore. I guess my question would be around teacher readiness and sounded like the TOSAs were incredibly important and instrumental in the success of Reveal. And so knowing that you're going from a varied approach throughout the district, you know, what kind of support will the teachers need from instructional coaches, or I guess TOSAs going forward, you know,
I
regardless
actually
of
love
what-
the word instructional coach, but keep going.
I was like, what is a TOSA? What kind of support will they need going forward? It feels like a pretty heavy lift.
And, you know, we met, so we talked, and you met the three of them and you spoke to them too. Like I said just earlier, this is a huge lift and it's a big investment for the district, especially as we are looking at changing instruction, because what science of reading is really changing instruction. And the readiness level of teachers, we see that it varies. I mean, you know, it varies, especially in a district like Wallingford-Swarthmore, where teachers have been either here for a very long time, or we have some very new teachers and teachers cling to what they are used to. And this is a district that shows results, so why not keep doing what we're doing? But we also know what's best practice. And what we are seeing is that we have not done this before, so I'm going to talk about this, the in-classroom coaching that we have been doing this year with the 95% group. We initially, there was some resistance to as to like, you know, what do we mean? Like, you know, somebody's going to come into my classroom and is going to watch me teach, and then is going to give me feedback. Like, what does that? This was totally very new in our school district. And we saw a total shift in how this is working now. So professional development is not just, has shifted from sitting in a room and learning from the professional specialist from that company, to really the person coming into the classroom and giving feedback and then meeting with the administrators after, because they also need support. There is no program that is going to be successful if the principals are not also aware of how it goes. And what they're also seeing is then when this classroom coaching is happening, they are also getting feedback on how students are doing. So that is really, do I believe that it's going to be any implementation? And we are fortunate at in the literacy world that we had one TOSA for each building. In math, they were splitting because they had 2 math for elementary. In literacy, we had 3. If that model stays the same, supporting the teachers in the classrooms to make sure that implementation is happening with fidelity is going to be crucial.
I almost think it's going to be more difficult than that, and I'll tell you why. My 5th grader is part of the pilot. He brought home a worksheet or something. And it was fine, it was great for homework, but it assumes that your child has been receiving that curriculum back. And so you're going to have rising 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders who do not have that sort of base knowledge.
So the good news on this is that grades K1-2 was implemented in 2021. So K1 was implemented in 2021 with the science of reading. I'm talking about like, you know, like at least that shift. Now, but a whole new program and coming home with, you know, parent resources, and that's going to be totally different. And we also have, you know, we are making sure that we have seesaw in grades K1-2 and Schoology in 3-5. So what is that going to look like? So that support is also something that we have been talking.
So, where do, as a board member, if I want to get more information to better understand what the science of reading is and what the push for or back it is for, because I don't know. I will know.
Go ahead. Dr. Brandy actually sent me an article. It's really good. It's from the Atlantic. It's really long, but it goes through the history of Lucy Commons and words, like it goes through all of that. But it took me a couple days to read through it, but it's really good. I'll email it to you.
And I can
Okay.
send you some videos.
Okay,
I can do something.
because I keep hearing it and I'm like, I don't really, I can't.
Oh, perfect. Okay. I will. Yep.
Because we're not, as board members, we don't have access to Schoolology or Seesaw. So we don't really know when it comes to voting, what we're actually voting for. So it makes it hard to say yay or nay, because we're missing that piece. So share it with all of us. We'll all take a couple
Dr.
days.
Scanlon will do
Dr.
it.
Scanlon.
Did I answer your question, Ms. Benson?
Thank you.
Sorry.
All right. Mandy.
Mandy Evelyn Cameron Drive, in Wallingford, and thank you for that question. And just to your question, that's why I, over the last couple of weeks, have really pushed for an alignment document to both of these programs, because as a board and as community members, I mean, this is my world, right? But it's not everyone's. And so to be able to have that transparency for someone whose literacy is not kind of their eat, sleep, and breathe, I think it's really important to have that information. So I'm excited to peruse those links and go through. It's a question that I have about what you put up there, with kind of that on the sample alignment
Which
slide.
I keep doing it on my computer. I keep forgetting.
Yeah, so is that going to be kind of like the strike through when we get into the link?
No, there is no strike through in the,
Okay.
that,
so
I
we
just
can-
put that as excerpt of science of reading. I
Okay,
just wanted to put that as an example,
okay.
because I
Okay.
can't link 125.
And then on the other, the previous, not that one, but the previous, nope. Sorry, it was the benchmark. Next, oh yeah, right there, sorry, one back. But there at the link, it references the 2022.
Yes, but we would be purchasing the 2020. I misspoke. I just got a text message that told me that I misspoke.
Okay.
Can you clarify that? Because I
Yes.
want to make sure I
We,
understand.
yes, we are piloting the 2022, but we will be purchasing the 20.
So we are piloting,
Because
What
they haven't released it yet. They haven't released they're still working, they're still creating the 2020.
so we're piloting not what we will be purchasing.
Correct. However, what they are doing right now, I think I have a slide on that. Maybe I don't. They are I explained this when I was talking about the reading league and why it was not reviewed, is because they are revising their program to have they improve their product by increasing explicit instruction in foundational skills, adding practice to codable. So they're giving us what they are releasing, but we do not have the 2026 version of their program yet.
So is it fair to say that the data that we receive from this pilot cannot be influenced for a decision? Because it's not what will be implemented in the fall.
Would it be fair to say that it's not accurate data because the program is not the same, because the product is not the same? Is that your question?
Right.
I don't think so, because I think that their product, what they have shown us so far, and the professional learning that they are giving to us right now, and what they're talking to teachers about, really, because what this is really about is how you teach and what is being taught and how you are emphasizing certain parts of what we haven't been doing before. So is it comparing apples to apples? Maybe not, but it's different brands of apples.
One of the things I'll do is I will ask benchmark to give us cross-referencing 22 skills and 26 skills. Cross-referencing. All right, make sure we do.
I mean, I would like to think it's an improvement, but at the same time, it's a.
I did attend their
Yeah.
professional development session with teachers. That was very.
Just as an amplification, there are also very specific questions that we can answer, that we can ask a benchmark. So questions like, can you confirm that the methodological alignment is consistent, the 2022 to the 2026? Can you confirm that the literacy practices that are being used as examples or model, that those practices are consistent? But there are some very specific back-end curricular questions that have to do with design that we can reach out and ask the publishing house about. And even when something is in the red line phase of being developed, so when a new book, almost everybody in
So
this room knows this,
really,
but
right now, the three things that they are adding is that explicit instruction in foundational skills. They're adding the 100 practice decodables to K2 and providing handwriting practice and enhanced word study resources in grades 3 to 5.
What were you saying?
that when a new resource is being developed, whenever something is being constructed by a publisher, there are various stages of writing that any kind of book is going to go through, any kind of textbook, anything that gets a publisher imprint on it. And one of those final stages is called the red line stage. And it's the stage where there'll literally be like red lines around the margin of it that say things like, do not duplicate, do not copy, because it's the almost complete stage. And so when a company is talking about a 2026 publication date, I imagine they are already in that red line phase, because that means in 2026, they are starting, they're putting books on the press. And so some of the questions, a publishing house would be equipped to answer some of them. And some of them are a little bit more back end, the back of the house questions that the superintendent or the curriculum officer, the assistant superintendent can get clarification.
And Dr. Barrett has been in conversation with both companies a lot. And one of the things that we could also do is they would do presentations too, just like, you know.
And is it, in the alignment documents for both companies, are they providing like specific examples? For example, the phonological awareness, are they saying in grade 1, unit 2, you know, like, are they giving that, or are they just kind of going to give like a definition of,
No.
hey, we're addressing phonological awareness by, you know, ensuring students are mapping sounds, or, you know, do they get specific, I guess, in the alignment
Yeah.
document with
They do.
program? Okay.
I mean, there are some examples of where they give specific examples.
I have another question. So we're just piloting, so can you answer the question of whether or not this meets PA standards and is aligned with our strategic plan? Or is that you wait until after we purchase it and it becomes?
They are all in the program. They go around state to state, make sure they have all the different versions of standards. They would go.
Okay, so are we measuring it that it matches with our strategic plan?
Well, the strategic plan says that we are looking at programs that are aligned with PA standards and that reflect the needs of our community, and that we're exploring current and relevant and research-based. So yes. That's pathway 1 and 2.
Can I just say one more thing?
Sure.
My daughter is also in a benchmark piloting classroom in fifth grade. And I, like my older daughter, I don't like to talk too much academics at home because, I'm mom and they don't want to listen to mom. But on several occasions, even before the pilot began, she excitedly talked to me about, Mom, do you know about this reading program? We're starting in class. And then this past week, walking to the bus, she was thrilled to tell me all about the choice that she had in writing instruction and how she, through a variety of options, chose to write about women's suffrage, which, my gosh, like, how could I not love that? But I just wanted to say, for a kiddo who doesn't love to talk literacy at home, she has, just not even prompted, she's pumped, so.
And
That's
to your
exciting.
point, the benchmark, I think they're learning about the Constitution.
Yeah.
And like, that's amazing too, like.
Yeah.
250-year anniversary.
Right,
Yeah,
right, I mean, and we're in Philadelphia, for heaven's sakes, but yeah, so that's good, cross curricular.
Right. And one of the things that I would say, to go back to Ms. Fitze's question about the support of the TOSAs, in doing a new literacy program, you always have to look at the ELA. You always have to look about what is the ELA block being used for and how it's being segmented and what we do. So that would be a scheduling implication that would really need the involvement of more than just the principal, just the curriculum.
That's the part that the alignment between what we've got and what we're trying to implement now. Like that's a piece that I had asked about, last month, and I assume that's a role that they will assume is helping with that alignment.
Yeah,
Is that-
yeah.
Okay. You do that.
Well, thank you. You
Thank you.
did a good job of explaining it, but we were all circling the paper trying to figure out.
I did that
This isn't
before.
matching. She's speaking, I said, she just talking off the top of her head.
No, I'm not.
There's nothing is matching, so that was kind of amusing.
I was
saw
told I had 10
you didn't
minutes.
do it, so I didn't feel so bad.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, our final presentation of the night is an update. So I'm very excited to share with you the promised update on D-level VLA. And so last October, we had started this conversation. And as promised, we wanted to come back to this committee and let you know how it's going. What things are working, what learnings have we had, what things seem to be successful, what seem to be our next steps. So this is a quick overview of some of our process of de-leveling. So back in October of 2023, started having informational conversation with parents. Previous to those meetings, the department was talking about this. After the conversations with parents, turning to conversations with ELA teachers, framing out the work of literacy specialists, going back to the teachers, talking to the principals, taking some time in November to build curriculum, and then we brought the beginning parts of our work to the Educational Affairs Committee in November to say, here's where it's starting. And then we spent a considerable amount of time over the summer fleshing out the seventh grade D-level ELA curriculum in some greater detail. And then in September of this year, in September of 2024, we D-leveled seventh grade ELA. So what that means is our students who were participating in a core sixth grade experience graduated to a core seventh grade experience. And throughout the fall, we had regular ongoing conversations in our English department meetings, like how is this going? How is this working? As our secondary literacy specialist, we're also working to provide support to kids. If this was another area that we kind of had our eyes on, and keep an eye on the kids who if the enriched program continued, who were the students who might have been recommended for enriched, like how are those kids faring? Our students who seemed like, oh, they might have selected the core option, how are they faring? And are we doing everything humanly possible to try to meet everyone's needs? And at the very least, make sure we're doing the harm. And so throughout the program, we've had ongoing conversations, but then come December, we had said, let's actually poll people. So we formally polled the teachers who had shared that they thought, oh, this is going really well. We're seeing certain behaviors in kids that we are really excited by. We are seeing different things in students' TDAs. So if you remember, we're year 3, the 3-year emphasis on text dependent analysis. And so a lot of really positive narrative feedback. In December, we also polled our students. What do kids think about this experience? And then in addition to some questions about ELA de-leveling, we had also asked them questions about the books that they're reading and what are some of the note-making and reading and writing practices that they're participating in. And then we wanted to bring this information back to you. And because the program seems to be going very well so far. So we're going to show you some data and some information that seems really promising to us. We are in a place right now where the feedback was not only shared with the middle school ELA department, I will pass on the feedback tomorrow when I meet the 9th grade team to the 9th grade ELA team because they are working on refreshing their curriculum. And then over the course of this spring and throughout the summer, we'll work to finalize the D-level 8th grade ELA in anticipation of moving this forward through the middle school. So that means 7th grade and 8th grade in the middle school will be D-leveled. And we are working to D-level students. We're working to D-level courses. At the same time, we are ensuring that when students enter high school, students who opt to take an honors level course will be very well prepared. And the students who are taking the standard level class, the core level class, the college prep level class, they will also be prepared. So we're thinking about how we open up possibilities. So just wanted to spend a little bit of time on this timeline and talk about why we're bringing this presentation to Ed Affairs at all. The next few slides I'm going to go through really quickly because every slide that has a highlighted review has already been presented at both a parent meeting as well as at a previous educational affairs meeting. So just to ground us in the definition of de-leveling, it is this practice of avoiding sorting students and depriving some kids of grade level expectations and activities. So this is the working definition we are using for de-leveling. It is grounded in the audits, which inform the work of the strategic plan. So we think about why we are doing this. So these 3 moves from our curricular audits have guided this work. And then addressing the questions and head on related to de-leveling. So why are we making this change? Because when we place students on a track, whether inadvertently or purposefully, it is very difficult to shift off that track. And when we think about students in middle school, these are students who are 11. And when you are 11, everything is possible and nothing is certain. And let's help people lift where they stand and ensure that everyone has access to grade level standards. Deep learning isn't transactional. So this idea of we want our experiences in ELA to be about deep, enriched learning where things get into the bones. Performance grouping is not the same as ability group. And so we spent a lot of time talking about the distinction between performance grouping versus ability grouping and how this relates to the phenomenon that Denise Pope described as doing school. As we talk about how stressed some of our students feel in high school, that idea of doing school in a performative way can earn you a credential, but sometimes doesn't earn you an education. And so are there ways that even with some of our younger students in middle school, we can interrupt? All learners should have access to high level experience and to grade level expectations. So every student in seventh grade takes the seventh grade PSSA. Every student in seventh grade goes on the same end of year field trip. Every student deserves access to grade level expectations and grade level standards. And then I think the elephant in the room, even at the beginning of this conversation, what about gifted learners? Is there a risk of us doing harm? Are we going to slow students down? And de-leveling, when done well, doesn't slow anyone down. And a school-wide enrichment model, which is what we based our work in, actually can benefit every learner. And so we'll talk about how we use this school-wide enrichment model and connected it to curriculum work. So the document that you see here, this is a deconstruction of standards document. And so in middle school ELA, at each of the grade levels, the team has purposely looked at standards, thought about what standards hold together in a meaningful way at a particular grade level, and then using a UBD inspired frame, thinking about how we turn those standards into enduring understandings that have the walking legs of a learning target. If you look at the bottom of that document, the learning targets are the specific things that become measurable targets for student learning. And so by saying those things out loud in really specific ways, it helps us move towards guaranteed viable experiences for all kids. We also wanted to be really honest as we're doing this work and think about how will we gauge if this is successful. And as a reminder, this is a review slide. So we started this process in 2023 and presented to the board that November. We said there are 3 things that we're going to do, that we're going to formatively collect local data and start to build some local assessment data, thinking specifically about TDA work. So at this point, we did a lot of calibration and alignment work on TDA. By next year, every grade level will have 2 common TDAs that we calibrate as a team. And there's conversation about how we can embed this in Linkit so that student work doesn't just exist within a grade level discussion, but that work, and we're hoping even that artifact can travel with the student's data profile locally over time. So we're trying to see if we can get that to work, and I'm very excited about that. Thinking about how our math data will help give us insights of, are we doing good for students? And at the very least, are we doing no harm to any groups of students? And then to survey learners, let's ask kids. If we ask kids, kids will tell us. When we talk to teachers, they will tell us. And so I'm here to present information on those last slides. So let's start with what the students said. And so this is a graph of what 7th grade students said when they were given the question, 7th grade language arts is overall. And so the students had 4 options. So we designed this so there was a forced choice. When you have an even number of items, if you pick a 3 or a 4, you're tending towards the positive side. If you pick a 1 or a 2, you're tending towards the negative side. And so when you only have 3 items, a lot of people just pick the middle one. So we designed this to force a choice on either too hard or too easy. In terms of the color, if something is green, that is telling us the D-level 7th grade course that we've experienced the first part of the year, it feels a little too challenging to me. It feels like it is a little bit of a stretch. So the fact that we have some students who said that, about 15 or 16 students, that was like, whoa, this feels like a stretch to me. And then because the students didn't do it anonymously, you could see their names, we just made sure those kids had support to help it. So we're like, ooh, that's good for us. And if you look at the blue, there's a very small number of students who said this class isn't challenging at all. Like I'm learning nothing new. And some of that might be the projections of being in 7th grade. But we also, we don't know. So we're going to kind of take the data as it is, but both of those wedges were smaller than we guessed. We thought those wedges might be a little bit bigger. What made us really happy is the large swath of orange. So when students said that 7th grade is a little challenging, I complete my work without effort and I'm learning a little, then we're like, okay, like these are kids who are saying, I'm doing the work and I'm learning and it doesn't feel like overly challenging. I'm sorry, let me retract that. The orange is challenging in a good way. I complete my work with some effort and I'm learning while I'm doing it. So that, the fact that that is 70% of this pie, that students are saying, I'm doing the work, seems to be meaningful, I'm getting something out of it. That was really kind of good news for us. When we look at that kind of reddish pie, that idea of, oh, the work is a little bit challenging for me, that gives us some area to think about, like, who are the students who are saying this? And when we dug a little more deeply into who those students were, it was really a mixed bag. Some of our students were on the list of students who would have likely been in an enriched class, because to keep ourselves honest, at the end of sixth grade, we asked teachers to make a list, kind of a blind list, who would you have recommended for enriched? Who would you have recommended for core? And then we used that in some additional data analysis. So when we went back and tried to figure out who are the kids in the red part of the pie, we thought, oh, these will be all of the enriched kids who are saying, like, you didn't challenge me enough. But it wasn't. It was a really kind of mixed group, which found really interesting. When we asked the students their experience about writing, we asked them, what are your thoughts and experiences on your summative essay at the end of the first quarter? And then we asked the same question about their summative essay and the degree of challenge in the second quarter. Again, we saw some equal pie wedges. The writing seems harder than the overall experience, but the amount of orange that consumed the circles was really inspiring to us. And in 2 years from now, when we're thinking about the writing curriculum as our central area of focus, because remember, the last 3 years were TDA, we'll be shifting to those 4.1 and 4.2 standards, thinking about grammar, convention, usage, and then we'll look at the writing curriculum. So the idea of having an area of focus and doing it really well and deeply. But this is something that was helpful information for us. What did the teacher say? So the teacher said that they're overall finding it successful. The seventh grade teaching team is finding value in this work. So much so that the eighth grade team is really excited to de-level their classes next year. There's genuine excitement for some of this work right now. The second piece about students who might have shown not as positive academic behaviors, presenting themselves in ways that teachers describe as increasingly scholarly. And one of the fears going into this was, is the level of conversation and class discussion going to be somehow diminished by having a mixing of groups and levels? And even some teachers had voiced that as a concern. And I was like, well, let's pay attention to that. Let's see if that plays out. And one of the teachers who was a little hesitant going into this had shared her surprise when not only was the level of conversation not stifled, she's like, the conversations are really great. There are more and different perspectives that are coming into the room. And I thought that was a gorgeous story. There's also some questions and some comments around what does it mean to be able to focus on a single prep rather than having two different courses. And this is something that I thought was interesting that teachers didn't really talk about on the front end, but now that the team is focused around those learning objectives, that we invested a considerable amount of time saying out loud, this is what we believe is the learning goal. This is what we are going to be all hands in on. We are going to look at this with laser-like focus and figure out ways to hold ourselves and kids accountable for this thing that we said we valued. And by having that single prep, rather than trying to make two different classes that look and felt different, sometimes for the sake of looking and feeling different, is allow teachers to focus on kids a little bit more deeply. And then the stigma of support doesn't seem to exist. And so this complements an update that we'll have on the secondary literacy specialist at a later meeting. We worked really hard to not have literacy support be a deficit model. And so every person can get better as a reader and writer. And so we very purposely have a literacy specialist. Sometimes working with kids, we're providing cushion support to. Sometimes working with our most gifted and enriched writers, so the teacher can spend a little bit more time working with students who might benefit from a little extra attention and support. So now when you see two different adults in the classroom, there isn't the sense of, who needs help on problem number 7? The idea of, oh my gosh, here is somebody else who can look at my writing, who can look at my reading. And then what have the administrators said? And so Chris Mansenka, who is the principal at Strathaven Middle School, he's also found this really positive, both for the reasons the teacher said, as well as some of the larger structural allowances this kind of shift has created. So by de-leveling ELA, we have the opportunity to avoid kids traveling from class to class in packs. And so kind of the inadvertent grouping and de facto tracking that was happening when you have a leveled math and you have leveled ELA and you only have so many blocks of time in your day. It means you have students who are traveling together, and that interrupts the possibility of ideas being able to cross-pollinate. And he was like, that as an administrator, that is a huge takeaway. And it creates flexibility and possibilities, both near term and as we're thinking about our strategic plan and the larger vision, it creates possibilities that we haven't yet imagined. And some of them that we have imagined, but have not yet articulated. So it's really exciting to think about some structural possibilities. The stories are one thing. There's also the data. And so when we think about how we will gauge if this is successful, we did also take some time and really look at our map data. And again, is this helping? And at the very least, is it doing no harm? And so when we look at the average map scores in 2023, 2024 with 7th graders, these are last year's 7th graders. So these are different cohorts of kids. When we look at the map data from fall to winter, students who are in enriched, you will notice that those students grew slightly. Their score, their RIT score increased a little bit. They remained in the 89th percentile, which means they maintained their place in line. And so there was some growth, not as much growth in terms of the number, because you get to the high end of the expectation, you just don't see as much growth number-wise. But the fact that they maintained their place in line comparatively at the 89th percentile, we're like, okay, like that's good data. What's interesting is we look at the students in the core section with their fall map, they scored 219 as an average. In the winter, the average was about the same, which means students, if you were a 7th grade student last year, your average fall map score and your average winter map score was about the same. The dilemma is because other kids grew and grew in the middle, we have kids who lost their place in line. They went from the 64th percentile to the 61st percentile. So that caused us a little bit of pause. It's one of the questions that we were wrestling through, and one of the reasons we were thinking about de-leveling, because this data isn't just one-year data. When we look back at the year before, we saw similar patterns. And again, in all transparency, different groups of kids. So we're thinking about kind of big number data trends. But when we look at the average de-leveled map score, something really interesting happened. On average, our kids went from a 224 RIT score to a 229 score. What's interesting is the percentiles went up. So across the board, on average, our 7th graders scored higher. Our 7th graders fared better on the map from fall to winter in the D-leveled seventh grade ELA class than in the historically level. But that's just one data set. Let's think about this data in another way. When we think about the average 2025 math scores of students who were likely in enriched ELA. So these are current seventh graders. This was the list of students that will never be released to the public that the teachers kind of made behind closed doors for the students who would likely be in enriched ELA. We went and we manually pulled all of their scores. And what was really interesting is you'll notice the same data trend for those students, the students who were likely enriched. And again, we pulled the names of the kids before we pulled the data. But what's interesting is you'll notice the percentile score stays the same. The percentile score stays the same, just like it did with the previous enriched classes. What's interesting, though, is that the students who were likely in core went up. And so that is how we get that, that kind of overall average. We also invested some time and energy thinking about, was this the same across all student groups? Are we serving all student groups in ways that are as meaningful as possible? So we engaged in some summative data analysis specific to our Black students. And so keep in mind with our Black student population, this is a small n. So on any given year, we're talking about between 20 and 30 students, but we're still looking for trends. And so last year actually the n is much smaller in seventh grade, that we're closer to about 12 students because we have about 30 students in the entire unit. So the n is small. So when we look at last year's scores, so these were last year's seventh graders, this year's current eighth graders. Once again, you'll notice that the map score stayed the same, but you'll notice a precipitous drop in percentile. And so that drop is so noticeable because this is at the lower end of the grade level expectations, and there will be an expectation of greater growth. So if you start at a place where your baseline score is lower, there's an expectation for more growth. So just like in past years, we see this group adheres to the trend of their scores kind of stay the same, but they lose their place in line. They lose their comparative place in line with the percentile. When we, yes, compared to all kids. Thank you. When we look at the D-level ELA students and just look at the Black students this year, the RIT score increased. Didn't increase as much as we would have liked it to maintain their place in line, but we avoided the precipitous drop we had with last year's students. I share all this with the caveat, these are different students and a very small n, but this is data and information that we're looking at student by student. Very quickly talk about these scatter plots. So what a scatter plot does is it lists every student and actually every class. So each one of those dots is a class average of where seventh grade students' score fell. In the ideal world, you want to be in the upper right-hand quadrant, which is high growth, high achievement. So if you are on the right side of that line, you have high achievement. If you are above the line, you have high growth. If you look at where our seventh grade math scores last year, this is across all seventh graders who took the test. If you look where the circles are clustered, high achievement, low growth. This is this year's math score. But remember, different kids. So we always want to think about the story behind the data. And I say to the teachers all the time, no one is flogged when the data is bad. We don't throw confetti when the data is good. we try to understand the story so we can do better for every set of kids every year. But when we mapped out this scatter plot, I will confess, I think that we went to throw. So what are our next steps? So the middle school ELA 8 team is convening. They convene once in the winter. They're going to convene again in May and work over the summer so that they feel they are as prepared as the 7th grade team was to D-level 8th grade ELA. Just as a note, that ELA D-leveling team for 8th grade will include 4 8th grade teachers. If, in addition to that, it will also include a gifted teacher and a special education teacher. So they were a team of 6. So I think that's part of what made the 7th grade really work. That when we were doing the build, the curricular work of building the tier 1 general education was built thinking about possible differentiations up and down in mind in the initial. So we're following that model. Anticipate there may be a request for material purchase of a new novel or a literature text selection. So those requests can be small. Because it would still be a request from the board. It's kind of put that on people's radar. As I had shared, we're finalizing and calibrating our local TDA prompts. And so we will keep the board up to date on that work. And if we are able to have it populate inside Lincoln. So an ongoing work that we're excited about, and success, failure, or draw, we will let you guys know how that is working. And then knowing that as we are drawing the work on analysis and TDA to a close in this kind of 3-year professional learning arc, our next shift will be to grammar, mechanics, and convention, the 4.1 and the 4.2 standards on the So that is the update we have promised, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Pratt. I'm excited. Yes. Ms. Delight?
Yeah, I mean, I feel, I wish, so I have 9th grade twins, and I would have loved for them to have had a D-level ELA experience. I really, so as a school psychologist, I think a lot about the messages we send kids about them as learners that are, likely unintended, but nevertheless impactful. And I've seen it, firsthand. So I appreciate this work very much. And I guess the question that I do have is, I'm noticing on the timeline, so you're going to kind of be following this progression up to 9th grade to kind of see like what is the outcome, once students enter high school. Is it sort of consistent with what you had hoped?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. So, and that idea of asking 2 questions continuously, is this serving students well? Is this doing good? And then at the very least, is it doing more harm? And I think whenever we are doing any kind of curricular work, I think those are 2 questions that as administrators we need to ask. As we're thinking about professional learning communities, those are the kind of questions that professional learning communities ask as a matter of practice. So there's just some really exciting work. And what's really wonderful is when it becomes a matter of stance and not a matter of requirement or rote. And the ELA team at the middle school, it is a stance. Like people are excited to have these conversations.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
I think it's wonderful, and starting with the middle school, with 6th graders, your group, it are the same kids, other than kids that come to the district with. So that's a good way
That's
of,
all they know. Right?
yeah, of collecting good data. Because you can see the results of the underserved and underrepresented. You see the growth. You get, so that lets you know that the achievement gap is closing a little bit.
And then I'm sorry.
It
But-
sets the table to have some really consistent measures for achieving each.
Yeah.
And then that comparative one where the Black students like was all students. Math those
Mhm.
They disaggregate their data, you can see how we're doing nationally
Mhm.
with other students.
So that is all the students in the entire district?
Yep.
Not just,
That's comparative to the survey, the norm settings in the test nationally. It's national.
okay, so are you doing it just within the middle school? Are you taking that out of the whole group of Black students to just the ones that are in the middle school?
So the data that we have pulled, because we're de-leveling seventh grade ELA, we just pulled data for seventh grade students who had that experience. So the data for that subgroup is students who identify as Black who are currently in seventh grade right now. So, and then the previous data, like the previous year's data, was students who were in seventh grade last year, who are now in eighth grade, who identify as Black. And that's why I said the ends are low. The ends are low. So we want to think about like, what are the bigger trends? And we want to think about what are the questions and the stories that data might tell us so that we can do better for every kid every time.
Yeah, because when the audit was done, it was based on all students. So, and we scored low on all students. So, I'm wondering, are we collecting data that shows that it's working? If you understand what I mean, that is there something that it is saying that it's working?
Yes. And so one of the things that we tried really hard to do was to have a focused data set. We said that the question we're asking is de-leveled seventh grade ELA positively impacting students and at the very least doing no harm? So the only students involved in the data set are either current seventh grade students or comparatively current eighth grade students based on their scores at seventh grade. So the data set is confined to those people who, to use a medical term, had the intervention, that they had they had the medicine applied, like the medicine was de-leveled ELA. They had that medicine, how did it?
And next year you'll have the current eighth grade class, 2 years of data. You'll have next year's eighth grade class, 2 years of data and be leveling, so you can look at two groups of kids over 2 years.
Yeah, and then by the time they get ninth grade, you have three
3
years of data to look at. So what happens after ninth grade? You're not de-leveling 10th and 11th and 12th?
That's such a good question. And so that is where this becomes exponentially more important. So in high school, as students are thinking about how they balance their load and how they balance their time, there are benefits for students to opt to take a college preparatory class, an honors level class, an AP class, and think about how their load will be balanced. What the team in high school is working to do is to clarify what exactly are those learning targets. Because when those learning targets are clear, it makes it not only easier, but possible to differentiate up and down. Part of the struggle for many teachers with differentiation is when the learning target and the learning goal feels more amorphous. But if you know, my goal is for every student to, I always use this example, every student knows that to analyze means you are stating something about the relationship between at least two literary elements. Well, the teacher, I need to know, do my kids know what a literary element is? Do they know how to put something in relationship? Can they articulate that in a way that is clear for a reader or a listener? Those are three things that I can measure, but I can't measure them unless I've stated clearly, this is what the goal is. And so this is where the curricular work that we're trying to do aligns to some of the de-leveling work, which is grounded in both curricular best practice as well as a stamp of equity and inquiry. So this work, they shouldn't be separate. The ties of the strategic plan really come together, I hope.
So I know that Dr. Johnston did a lot of work in Massachusetts with partnering with the community so that students had access to taking jobs at the local market, because that way you reach students that maybe are more into a trade, like they apprentice at an automobile shop. And that's part of their curriculum for the year. Are we working towards that, towards 10th grade? Will this de-leveling help guide the curriculum and the core studies of high schoolers? Like, everybody doesn't want to go to a 4-year college, but that's what we teach to. And we don't teach to trade. Like, will we take students on a field trip to Delaware County's technical school, which I went to a presentation there, and it blew me away. Right there, what they have that's affordable, that are all trades that build.
We're actually, yeah, we're getting
We're
lost.
I think you have a good point, but I think also after 8 o'clock, we're steering in the weeds.
But we are doing more with the it's and first week, we had administrative meet with the parent technical education staff, some of the administrators, they go over some of that data. In fact, last month was and a couple of us were there for celebration.
And I just have a quick comment before done. I didn't realize that the 7th grade ELA had a single prep. I think you can make a huge argument, but that's also, I mean, that's amazing. And then they all are doing the same thing. And as a team, like, that is best practice. I did not talk. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right.
So with that, we are ready to adjourn the March Educational Affairs meeting. This meeting will be posted online in the next several days. We encourage any members of the public to please come and join us for in-person meetings. And thank you to the board. Thank you to all of our presenters, and have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.